Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Jamie Allan is what happens when magic grows up, gets a tech upgrade, and still keeps its sense of wonder. Known as the original technology magician, Jamie has been blowing minds since his teenage debut, fusing holograms, lasers, and interactive media into performances that feel more like experiences than shows. From West End to sold-out runs in Chicago and now New York, his latest production, Amaze, isn't just a hit, it recouped its investment in under a year and keeps audiences coming back for more. But behind every great show is someone making the magic scalable, and that's where Corey Ross comes in. As CEO of Starvox Entertainment, Corey has helped to produce some of the most immersive and talked about experiences in the world, including Immersive Van Gogh and Disney Animation, Immersive Experience, collectively reaching millions of fans. Today, we've got the magician and the mastermind, Jamie and Corey, here to talk about blending art, tech, and storytelling into something that doesn't just entertain, it sticks with you. Corey and Jamie, welcome to Nice Guys on Business.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
Pleased to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. So first of all, I do have to say congratulations on your Drama Desk win this past weekend. How did it feel to win that award?
It was amazing, right? Because for us to think that we can have magic embraced by the theatre community, that was always the dream of this show. A lofty ambition that Corey and I set ourselves was, can we make a magic show feel like theatre and art and have some truth and genuine emotion to it? I think that's what we've hopefully achieved. And yeah, the Drama Desk, just the nomination would have been incredible to get a win. We were nominated for 2 and we won 1, so just exceeded our expectations. I couldn't believe it.
And then as for the business side of winning a Drama Desk, that's still ahead of us. I'm really curious to see, we will leverage it in our marketing, hopefully to give us a little bit more, even more credibility in our marketing. But I'm also curious to see how it helps us stand apart from, there's lots of other magicians out there, but not too many who have Drama Desk awards, how it helps this show stand out from the crowd and possibly find opportunities for it to tour or to go to other markets where there might be a local presenter who will recognize it more now or be more curious about it and be more likely to license it from us because we have this award.
Oh yeah, is that kind of in the future plans, having the show be licensable or having it go out on the road?
We're still developing the future plans. In a normal story of a show, that's part of the plan. I'm really curious as to how long a magic show can last in New York. Maybe it'll be here for years and years and years, and it won't be available elsewhere. Or maybe there's plans that can combine that. We want to reach the most number of people. From a business perspective, we want to bring in the most amount of money, and how to do that is still to be developed.
Great. Well, that makes a lot of sense. It seems like that does seem to be the model. A show starts in New York or elsewhere, then it goes on tour, and then people can see it in their own city who, aren't able to make it to New York or London or wherever the show happens to be running. So that would be a really great way to get more eyes on the show.
Well, it's interesting, Rachel, because the show started off as it was originally designed to fix a problem, which was that I live in the United Kingdom primarily, and we were touring in and out of the States. But it was quite hard to string certain shows together, and the cost of trucking and accommodation between dates. So I'd said to my business partner, Tommy, could we come up with a show that could just be me, you, and my wife, Natalie? Could we do it so that we could get into a small thing so that when we're not touring the big show, we could have something small that we could put on a plane? So we said, yeah, let's write Amaze. And then Amaze ended up being a 2-truck show again. So it kind of, the exact opposite happened to it. It went bigger than the other show ever has. So indirectly, we're back in the same position, but with a far greater product.
Oh, sure. Well, that's always how it goes, right? The
And
ideas
now
get
I live in
away.
America, so maybe that's half the battle is also solved.
So is your wife's name, your wife's name is actually Natalie?
Yes, yes. If you're referring to the Natalies in our show, the Natalie and our first cover understudy for Natalie is also called Natalie. So that came from truth.
Got it, because in the show, all of the girls are called Natalie, and I was wondering if that was truly their name. So
Yeah, no.
sounds
Now everybody that comes into our show is hired as a Natalie, and they all get referred to as the Natalies. Yeah,
understood. Now, for the Drama Desk Award, award that you won was for puppetry. Is that right?
it certainly was.
And
No.
a strange thing for a magic show to win. And it's hard to describe why we won for that without giving away a magical and amazing and surprising moment in the show. So it's hard to dig too deeply into it. But I can say what I've been saying to all my friends, which is this show went through really three or maybe four phases. We started in Chicago, then moved to London and played outside the West End, then played the West End in London, and then moved to New York.
With Tampa in between.
Yeah, no, I have Tampa. We have five phases. Anyhow, what I love about producing magic and what I love about my relationship with Jamie is that unlike other things that I produce, where I feel like I lack the expertise. I'm not a musical director. I cannot tell someone how to change notes or tones, even though I do produce musicals. But I had an idea how to take, again, I don't want to give away what the surprise is, but how to take something that had been there in the story that Jamie was telling. And I said, we got to make it bigger. We got to make a big 11 o'clock number. And we sat down and brainstormed. So I'm very proud that this little piece that won the award is a piece that I got to participate in a creative way. And beyond sort of helping brainstorm the idea, I'm not the guy that made the puppet. I'm not the guy that figured out the magic around the puppet. I'm not the guy that figured out how to integrate it into the story. All of that is Jamie and other, and other Axtel and a guy named Greg Fruin and other people on our team. That's not what I do. But to have won the award out of all of the wonderful and incredible things in the show for something that I actually did have a finger in beyond marketing and budgeting and the things that I normally do, I'm really proud of it, and it's really exciting.
Yeah.
That is so exciting, Corey. And maybe up next for you, you can produce a full-scale puppet show. It sounds like, maybe that's in your future.
It could be.
It feels like it could be if it's big. Working with Corey for years, a lot of my conversations with Corey are, let's make it bigger, louder, more bangs, more explosions. And he's great at finding and seeing where that show needs energy and a pop and what it's going to need to get the crowd to rev at that moment. As I've gotten older, I've become far more interested in the storytelling aspects of the show and the truth of it and the heart of it. And I enjoy the moments of silence and the subtlety. And so we make a good mix from that point of view, because Corey's always pushing me to go, yeah, that's all great, but then we need a big explosion.
So how did you two meet in the first place?
Well, maybe I tell this one because I have a way of telling this. I was innocently sitting in my office, which is in Toronto, and my office at the time happened to be a place where there were many other entertainment producers and marketing agencies, etc. So we all kind of had a little hub in Midtown in Toronto in the Summerhill area. And so I was innocently sitting there, and Jamie's manager, a guy named Steve, wandered into my office, mostly because he was lost looking for someone else. And I said, "Oh, who are you, and what do you do?" And he says, "I'm working with a magician." And I said something like, "I love magic," and that's how the conversation began, and that's how we met. And what was that, Jamie? Maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, approximately now. It's coming up on a decade, because we did our first actual run of shows was started in the fall of 2017, I think.
Wow.
That was in Chicago. So at that
That
time,
was at the Harris. That was and that was at that time. I'd come out of the West End. I'd done a couple of pop-ins with individual shows at the West End, and I'd been in another show that was running in the West End at the time. And I'd also had 3 tours of the UK. And when we met Corey, we wanted to break the States, and that was my first foray into the States. Was the Harris Theatre in Chicago, where we still hold the box office record for the most tickets ever sold for a magic show. That was a 1,550 seater though, the Harris Theatre. So it was a vast space, and I always try to let people know that that's not because we're saying that. That's not because David Copperfield or Penn and Teller wouldn't have outdone that, but nobody would have been crazy enough as what Corey did to say, let's go in and do the quantity of shows that we did in there. And that's what made it, and it worked as well. That was the other side of the coin. Corey made it work. So we ended up just selling. Some days we do 3 shows a day, 4,500 tickets a day, and we were doing incredible.
That's amazing. So it is more of the standard, how would you say, like the more standard schedule for maybe some other magician doing a show to be to come in and do a very limited run somewhere and then off they go?
Yeah, well, my model has always been with Corey. We drop into a place and figure out how to market it and do a lot of shows in there to make it work. But I'll let Corey speak to that.
yeah, I was going to say, look, you've got 2 models for magicians. You've got the touring model, where usually it's a very short period of time that they're in any market. But then you've got what we call the sit-down model, which is mostly concentrated in 2 markets in the world, Vegas and bizarrely Branson, Missouri. Let's set aside Branson for a second. There are magicians that sit there and stay there for years. But Vegas, everybody knows that David Copperfield's been there for years. You might know that Penn and Teller have been there for years, that Chris Angel have been there for years. It's a very competitive magic market, but people go there and they stay there and they find success there. And that's how that market's been. When I first started working with Jamie, the idea was, let's find places to go for relatively short stints, a week or 2, and let's do it at the best time of year when we know that the audience for magic and audiences in general are going to be available, interested, and ready to see a show. And so specifically, that's when kids are available. And so specifically in Chicago, we chose the Christmas period. But I think our secret sauce, which Jamie's alluded to, and we're implementing it in New York as well, is the ability when people are available, when the audiences are available, to scale up the number of performances. And so a normal performance week might be 6 to 8 shows. And we would go in very concentrated into that Christmas period, and do a lot more than that. And we carried that forward to New York over the Christmas vacation, which is effectively 2 weeks. In New York last year, we did 37 performances. Unheard of. The theater hadn't ever experienced that. And we had to organize ourselves very carefully to staff for that and to plan for that and to market for that, so we would sell the tickets. But it allows us, as I said, at the time of year when the demand is the highest, to really capture the most revenue.
Which is how the show recouped, really, is by doing those kind of things. Oh, it's hard to recoup a show when you're just trundling along at a pace. You have to have these bumps, which is hard for a Broadway show to do that.
Sure, because the typical Broadway or off-Broadway model is we do 8 shows a week. We have 2 days of the week where we have a double show day and then a day off. So in your busy season, so Christmas, Thanksgiving, maybe summer, I'm not sure, what your chosen busy times are, but what does your schedule look like around those times?
Around a base model of around 14 shows in a holiday period a week. And then we may add or subtract from that by a couple based on whatever data is available to us, and things like that might change, like the World Cup coming into New York this year, that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're able to be nimble on our feet, I think.
Right. So you're almost doubling the standard. If it's normally 8 and now you're up to 14, that's a lot of shows. So are you doing all of them yourself, Jamie?
No, I have an understudy, which is really surprising for people that have seen the show, because there are some minor changes to the show when the understudy is in that you wouldn't notice. And I think we've done a good job that you wouldn't really. I think that's true, isn't it, Corey? People don't particularly notice unless you're intimately familiar with the show.
No, I don't think they noticed, but it's also a very unusual move that I was happy that Jamie was agreeable to, because usually a magic show is about the magician and the magician's personality, and Jamie's personality and life story are what this show is all about. But at the end of the day, every show on Broadway has actors and has understudies, and we thought if we took that approach, it would help us succeed. And also, frankly, there's a big investment in putting on a show, and give us a little bit of security around that as well. Jamie's
Well, I
allowed
was terribly ill on the last day of the Criterion, wasn't I, Corey? There was no choice for me but to not go on stage because we couldn't cancel because we had no shows to replace those people in, and we were sold out the last 3 shows. And I was the illest that I've ever been, and I think that was probably the reason why we now have an understudy.
Oh, sure. I mean, Broadway survives because of understudies and swings, but this is certainly a very unique circumstance because it's your show.
It's not, but there's not without precedent. I mean, I was talking with Chris Jones just the other day, and he told me, and I wish I could remember the names of them. I must ask him, but he told me of 2 other shows on Broadway, said that are based on a life story and that have had understudies and people come in and tell that. I don't think that is unusual for somebody to tell somebody else's story. It's unusual when it's running concurrently with the person whose story it is. If I left the show, I don't think it would be a problem at all. It's the fact that sometimes I'm on, right?
Sure.
And it's not a problem. Like we get like I'm sure that if we dug through all the thousands and thousands of guests, we could probably find 1 or 2 that might have had some kind of issue with it. But we've seen no problem, no
So
problem other than
how did you go about auditioning the understudy?
never did. We already had him. Harry De Cruz assisted me in writing the show, coming up with some of the creative and helping me form the show back in the day when we were creating it for Chicago. And he's been with the process since. Harry has worked with me as an advisor. He was a great advisor on many big TV shows and for big names like Darren Brown. But he also worked with me. And when this opportunity came around, I said, Harry, it makes sense if it's you, right? Because you have an involvement. Some of your DNA is in this show. Some of those little bits of story nuggets, things are coming from his experiences. So I said that it makes sense to me that it's you.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, somebody who's already involved in the show and who you trust. So you only have the one understudy. So is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as soon as Corey is finished practicing it, then he will be the number 2. But
Corey, how are your magic skills?
He's dragging his heels a little on some of the sleight of hand.
The funny thing is, because I've been watching this show. I've seen it countless times, and at some point, Jamie says there are dreamers and there are skeptics. And Jamie, maybe better you explain what they are, and then I'll pick up this story a little bit.
Yeah, well, you saw the show, Rachel. I say that there are certain people are 2 personality types in a magic show. You're either a dreamer who just wants to sit back and let the magic wash over you, just to experience it. And then the skeptics who sit there trying to figure everything out. They're sat there saying, no, I'm going to book tickets in the front row. It's like they see it like a puzzle or a challenge. And that comes back a few times during the show, but it's something I established at the start. So yeah, yes, Corey.
So I am the dreamer. I've watched the show countless times, and there's still most of the magic I don't understand how it happens. And when I catch it, if I figure it out, I'm usually just disappointed. I like to be amazed. And that's, I think how most of the audience is. So part of it is just coming with the same eye as the audience is important for a producer to do.
My favorite saying in our show, the favorite line in the whole show is that as a magician, I don't keep secrets from you, I keep them for you. And I think that that's really true because people feel like they want to know. The truth is the magicians are guarding an empty safe. You don't want to know. The secret to the trick is ugly. That's to quote my friend Teller. He says that the secret is ugly, and what we want to present is something beautiful. And if the secret was beautiful, it would make for entertainment to watch it. But actually, most of the time, the secret is only disappointing.
I have no idea how you do any of those tricks. I was there with a friend of mine, and the whole time I was looking over like, how do you do that? How do you do that? I mean, I thought it was so amazing. And I don't think that I consider myself a skeptic. I like to consider myself a dreamer. But I'm also just kind of curious, you know, how you do it. So I was looking real close, but you can't figure it out. There's no way.
Well, yes, on a good night, this is true. No, we don't have any. We don't have a. You know, I don't think we ever, you know, expose anything or have an issue with those kind of things in the show. Also, the interesting thing with magic is you don't know what's going to happen. Like, you're at a strategic advantage if you come to the show multiple times. And if you came to see the show 5 or 6 times and you said you couldn't tell me how anything was done, I'd be disappointed because you've had several chances at it because it's meant to be viewed one time. You know, magic works best the first time. Some tricks are designed to be repeated, but not many.
Well, I thought it was truly amazing. And you know what I thought was really fascinating, that, you know, as an adult, I was so in it, and I was looking around me and I noticed this show really has such multi-generational appeal. You know, there's little kids there in the audience. They're there with their parents. They're there with their grandparents. And the fact that everybody in the audience is so captivated, it's very hard, I would think, to put together a show that has such multi-generational appeal. So I would just love to know, was that by design, and how important has that been to the success of the show, do you think?
Well, that for me is not a problem to create a show like that. But what I'd like to do is actually talk about what the challenges of that from Corey's perspective. And I would give Corey a lead in on this because I think this is interesting to people from a business perspective. I can create a show that appeals to everybody. That's actually easy for me to do. I've mostly done that in my life. The challenge is making sure it does not get pigeonholed as a show for kids because it's magic. And that was my big thing that I said to Corey early on. How are we going to tackle that? And I think that is, I think we've succeeded in that, because now if you look on the midweek, most of the time there are only 2 or 3 children in the audience, and I'm delighted about this. And Corey would be able to say, well, how has he navigated that marketing to get that to work? Because you can't just have kids; they're not there on the weekdays. The show can't survive on that.
Well, I like the abusive parents that take their kids out on school nights. So it's really tricky. In you know, most of the marketing that people are exposed to about this show, they see it for seconds, and decide whether they're interested and whether they buy in or they don't buy in. And there's maybe, you know, in your digital advertising, you can maybe focus different messages against different target groups. But in all of the other marketing, it's one omni message that has to go there. And the message has to say that there's a magic show and that it's wonderful and that it stands out from all the other magic shows and that it's, you know, won awards. And then it has to also somehow tell you that it's for date night and it's for families. Because we don't want to say it's adult magic and not have families. And you don't want to say that it's children magic and not have adults. And so we really look at all of the advertising and scrutinize it very carefully to see if we're try to see if we're achieving that. And then you know, the other side of it is that word of mouth also carries the show. And so once, you know, people begin to see it and talk to others, that message kind of also gets out there into the universe. But yeah, we're on a podcast. You're not seeing, I can't show you pictures. All I know is I know it when I see it, whether it feels too kiddie or whether it feels too adulty, or whether it's skating along between the two. And I know it when it's off, when I'm presented with creative. And then, as I said, the digital creative, you know, you can draw some conclusions, and data on who it's appealing to and who's clicking and who likes it, etc. But it's tricky. It's tricky to in a magic show. It's tricky to communicate all of that.
Constantly trying something new, aren't we? At the moment, we're testing things for 80s because the show is about the 80s. And that's something we've never really marketed into. I mean, the logo is designed to be an 80s stylistic, but I don't know how many people really pick up on that. We try things that say, hey, it's 80s night, you know, at Amaze. It's because the show is about that period. And there's so many things that we can focus on. It's like picking one at a time and seeing how that pans out. But it's funny, I would say our audience across the week, the makeup of the crowd, I would say that 90 to 95% of them are adults. The other 5% are kids, including the weekends.
Oh,
So
sure.
we're not a show for kids. We're a show that is suitable for kids that kids do love. But we deal with adult themes. We deal with death. We deal with loss. We deal with a lot of things. It's, you know, it's kind of some deep theming there.
Right. Well, I thought it was so well done. I mean, I think it's so entertaining for every single person in that room. I was entertained from start to finish. And I wasn't expecting it to be two acts. I think when you think of a magic show, you think you're just going to come in and, you sit there for an hour, 90 minutes, and you go on your way. And then there was intermission. I was like, oh, there's another hour. That's so fun. I loved the length of it.
We need the time to tell the story.
Yeah, we needed it to tell the story, but we also had to tell the audience. We found at first that there were people who would stand up and clap and leave at intermission, and they don't come back. We've realized we had to put up a big sign that would say, "Hey, it's intermission. There's more." But wait, there's more. And the second half. Listen, the magic throughout obviously is spectacular, and that moment before we go to intermission is, as you know, is a real shocker. It's a real twist. It's really exciting and it's interesting. But there's so much exciting stuff in the second act, including our Drama Desk award-winning.
Yes, the second half is bigger. I designed the second half to be really balls to the wall throughout. It's very we have a slow opening for a moment just after the curtains open to just ease us back in, and then after that, the second half is really strong magic. It's all my favorite magic, and we've left a lot of room. First half is a kind of getting to know you. It's a little more gentle. It finishes big, and then the second half is just all great stuff.
Oh, sure. It's so funny that you say you have to really let people know that they come back after intermission, because I have definitely found that myself as well. Producing theater, if you're getting audiences who aren't necessarily your typical theater going audiences, they don't realize, especially if you end act one with a bang, they're like, "Oh, that was great. I'm going to go now." So that's funny that you feel the need to tell them. I think it's smart.
We thought the lack of us taking a bow would telegraph that this is not. This is not it. But yes, we do have big signage, and I think we could improve upon that further.
Sure. I have to say, one of my favorite ways that you all advertise is on the trash cans.
Oh, he's king of the cans.
Yeah.
You are on every trash can in Times Square. And I've actually spoken with a lot of my friends about your show who've never seen the show, but they know that you're on the trash cans. So now I'm going to encourage them to come see the show.
There's a good story here in Corey's relationship with trash cans. He can talk for hours on this subject.
Listen, I have advertised on trash cans around North America. The trick is, for a little show like this. This is a little show that can. We're in a 200-seat theater, which, by the way, if you're thinking about coming to see it, makes this such an amazing and intimate experience. But you have to choose how to market and how to get the word out when you ultimately have a limited budget. I would have loved to have bought, all the giant billboards in Times Square, but they're neither available because many of them are taken by big brands or other big musicals, nor are they affordable for this show, and certainly not affordable for this show year round. There may be moments, I described that we ramp up for Christmas and we ramp up for the summer. There may be moments where we can afford to ramp up the advertising and take some of these bigger things. But I was looking for affordable, frequent, visible to tourists, visible to New Yorkers, space enough to explain our story. And how could we become part of Midtown Manhattan? How could we become part of Times Square? I said a line: we have to win in Times Square. If you're doing a show that people are seeing in the Midtown area, you have to win in Times Square, and it comes down to that. So the medium that we chose to do that is the garbage cans. And the other thing that's kind of nice about that is we buy them from the business improvement group, Times Square Alliance, and they have a lot of charitable and other things that they do to improve the neighborhood. So it's kind of nice to be cycling the money, what little money we have, but to be cycling it into that direction.
Oh yeah, well, I see you. I'm looking back through my photos right now because I've taken so many pictures of your trash cans because I think they're really such great advertising.
I think that we have around half of all of them.
I think the best moment on this campaign was it Ed Sheeran who has a
He was doing a video walking down the street, and he walked past it. Yeah.
Yeah, in the promo for the documentary on Netflix, we got him walking past an Amaze garbage can. So I don't know if that's
broadside as well, so you got the whole thing. It was good.
but it was wonderful.
You all should repurpose that content on your own social media.
Oh, we did.
Amazing. That's so much fun. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to kind of finish with one last question, because I thought that this quote was so incredible. So the Chicago Tribune compared your artistic process to people like Stephen Sondheim. How do you react to that kind of comparison?
I'm not the one that can react to that. Like it was beautiful that Chris wrote a love letter to the show. I'm forever indebted to Chris. I didn't know Chris. I'm reasonably friendly with Chris now since he wrote that review, but he keeps his distance, prior. But him writing those things is what led this show. Like I've said to Chris, you're a critic. You made a difference in my life. The moment that you wrote that review, when we read it the next day, it was a 4 out of 4 star review. Apologies to Chris that we often put 5 stars on the trash can because he rates out of 4, and we need to convey that message to the average person. So we do take the liberty of putting 5 because it was his maximum score. But he wrote a love letter to the show. And in fact, that review was so incredible that Corey plastered it in full outside the Criterion Theatre in Piccadilly Circus in the West End. The whole thing just blown up. We're like, just read it. Read the whole thing. We don't need to get pull quotes from this. This is somebody very respected. So yes, it meant the world. But the entire review meant the world to me and my family, and I'm sure to Corey.
But what I like about that review, well, 2 things. I mean, first of all, that review in many ways is what encouraged me to continue to invest in the show. There's something here. There's something worth growing. It's already had outside critical acclaim. That was important. But particularly that line in the review speaks to Jamie's artistic project here. This is not just a razzle-dazzle magic show. This is a very delicately, intelligently, in a narrative way, put together concept that touches you emotionally, that gives you hope, that's heartfelt, that touches adults and touches kids, but it's completely different than a magic show. That anyone would imagine. You get what you imagine. You get we've talked about it, all the wow and how did he do that, and all of the magic and balls to the wall magic in the second act and all of that. But there's this artistic core to what's happening, and that's what's completely unusual about this show. And that's why I ultimately thought this show belongs in either London or New York. When we started to look for theaters, we found a theater in the West End, but it was only available for 6 weeks. We're like, okay, we're going to try that. We're going to see how that works. And we went from having this wonderful review in the Chicago paper to having Critic's pick from the Times of London, and on the strength of that came to New York and found a place where we could be forever. And I thought to myself, we've got all these magicians in Vegas who have a lifetime. They've been, how many years has David been at Copperfield? You're going to know the answer to this, Chief.
He was 25 years at the MGM.
25 years.
But before then, but since around 2017 or 2011 or something was when he sort of took up permanent residency in that building. He was touring into it otherwise. But yeah.
So 20, 30 years, David is Mr. Magic for Vegas. And I thought, who is Mr. Magic in New York or London? And I realized that there might be an opportunity. These are big cities with lots of locals and lots of tourists, and there could be an opportunity to find the magician who would fit there, and that would be a better solution, for a business than necessarily having to have a life where you tour, and so. When I saw this review and it was calling out the artistic and the intelligent side of the show, which is very unusual in a magic show, to have this kind of thoughtfulness put into the story and the narrative and the journey that you take the audience on. When I saw that, I knew that we had content that could work in a more sophisticated market like New York, which frankly, it's more sophisticated than Vegas. People are not here to gamble and drink. That we had a show that maybe had a shot at doing that. And so we'll see. We're almost a year into it now, which is already spectacular and wonderful. And we've recouped. So from my view, all of that's success. At one point, I said to Jamie, maybe if we stop now, we'd have enough joy. But really, there's a possibility here that this could be here for years, and that we could be the magic show of New York, and Jamie could be New York's magician.
Wow. And now audiences are going to have even more opportunities to see the show because am I remembering right that you extended again now through January?
We have, yes.
We're
now currently running through January and, watch this space. We'll see how long this ride goes. We have no immediate plans to stop. The public will tell us when that time is.
Well, that is so exciting. Well, thank you both so much for speaking with us today. It sounds like the show has been extremely successful, and we're wishing you all the success in the world moving forward.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Of course. All right, Kate, you still with us?
Yes, that was lovely. Thank you so much, everyone.
So are we okay with all the time? Jamie kept saying thank you, Rachel, and the introduction mentioned you, Rachel. Do they know that you're interviewing us, or is it going to sound like your dad's interviewing us?
Oh, no, it's going to sound like me.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah, I'm the official New York correspondent for the team, so I'm here.
Oh, I missed that. I thought this was going to be edited into an interview with them.
Right, no, I got that.
Oh, yeah, no, my point was it'll just kind of be edited down a little bit. So, if I ramble, if my questions are silly, they'll cut me out, things like that.
Is there anything that we should do over? There was a little bit of overlap once in a while that Jamie and I went to answer the same question, but that works. And
I think it all feels very, very natural. I mean, Kate, did we get everything in terms of anything that you would like recorded?
I thought that was good. Is there anything else, Corey and Jamie, that you want to talk about?
No, I'm very happy.
Okay, wonderful.
Great.
All right.
Well, thank you all so much, and we'll make sure that the team sends you over any materials, promo materials, finished product as soon as we have it.
And how soon do you think this will be up on air?
Usually the turnaround is within a couple of weeks, so it'll be pretty quick. But we'll make sure that the team keeps you updated.
Okay.
That's fabulous. Thanks
very
much.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you, and see you later, Kate and Corey. I'll talk to you whenever.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Friday advice and Tuesday interviews with people far more interesting than they are. Fill up your week with the nice guys. Have fun storming the castle.